Hi chess fans, in this movie we will look at the game between Veselin Topalov and Hikaru Nakamura, played 2016 at the St. Louis Showdown. It was a 60-minute game. Veselin Topalov was white, plays e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez defense, and the Berlin variation. Rook to e1, and now after knight to d6, we have the variation rook to e1 and bishop to f1. White puts the bishop to a useful square and looks to develop his pieces harmoniously. Knight to f5. Black also wants to keep the pieces on the board. Castle, d4, d5, c3, bishop to d6, bishop to d3. Both sides develop their pieces. Knight c to e7, knight bd2, c6. So maybe Hikaru played a little bit too slow here with c6. And our training question number one is, how can Topalov with white make a move that develops his own pieces but at the same time also hinders black's development? Those are the type of moves we always want to look out for in the opening. Okay, let's have a look. This knight here on f5 is a little bit at an exposed position and can be attacked. The developing move, queen to c2, attacks this knight, and the knight at the moment is well protected. But this knight here on e7 doesn't want to stay there forever. It wants to develop to better squares. And this bishop also wants to maybe develop to a better square to connect the rooks and develop this rook here on a8. And both of these pieces now are stuck and have to stay where they are. Otherwise, this knight will can be taken because it's attacked 2 times. And at the same time, this knight here can also not move away to remove this threat so easily because all of the squares that go forward are controlled by white. And backward, the squares are blocked. And we also don't want to have the knight on h6 where it can easily be a target by this bishop. So queen to c2 is a smart move to block black's development and at the same time develop white's pieces further on this nice diagonal, eyeing the black king. So Hikaru played g6, protecting the knight, but creating already some weaknesses here on the king side on the black squares. White develops, brings his knight over to the king side where he wants to attack. Knight to g7, the knight now moves away, removing these motifs and freeing up the other pieces, but black has already lost a lot of time. Knight to g3, f6. Maybe one of the best moves in this position. The idea is to take these squares away from the knights and kind of get a sort of position that is very solid. But how would you evaluate this position? Where are weaknesses in black's position and what could be white's plan now to exploit them? Training question number 2. Okay, again, black is solid, material is equal. White is a little bit ahead in development. All the pieces are already eyeing towards the king, whereas the rook on a8 is not yet developed, and it's not yet 100% clear if all these pieces are in the best position. White also has this half-open file with the rook positioned on it. So white has an advantage in development, and black has 2 weaknesses. One weakness here on h6, which is a weak square, and potentially also a weakness here on g6 because this pawn has just moved and this pawn here is now only protected by one more pawn, and this can be a technical liability. And how can white exploit these weaknesses? We see now a very instructive play by Topalov. First, bishop h6, exploiting the weak square, creating a pin here on the knight, and making the rook here feel a little bit uncomfortable, and at the same time also developing the pieces, connecting the rooks. Very nice play. If you see the weaknesses, this move makes a lot of sense. Hikaru played rook to e8, taking the rook out of their pin. And now knight to g6, eyeing this weakness and already having ideas in the position, sacrificing the knight here. Knight takes back, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and already threatening a little mate here. Probably it's not working right away, but these motives are now all in the position. These pieces are still not developed. White is very close in bringing more pieces into the attack. And now training question number 3. Imagine you're black here. What should be black's plan now? What is the textbook defensive strategy in a position like this? Okay, the textbook defense against a situation like this is to exchange pieces, as many pieces as you can, and ideally you would exchange pieces that are passive, your own pieces that are passive, and against active attacking pieces of the opponent. So let's have a look. Bishop takes g3, exchanges one piece. And Hikaru's next move, knight e to f5, attacking both of these pieces, and no matter what white does, black's plan is very clear, exchanging those pieces, because the situation of the weakness of the king gets less important once white does not have any pieces to attack anymore. Okay, question number 4. White's advantage is about to evaporate as black exchanges pieces. What can white do? Pause your video and try to find a plan for white. Okay, the general idea is white has this advantage of this attack, but black is exchanging pieces, so the general idea is that white has to create additional motives, has to create additional resources in the position. White can not stop black from exchanging pieces, and in this position here, it's only a question of time until black reaches this goal, so white has to use this time to create additional resources. And what could be a resource here? So this rook on a8 is not playing in the game right now, whereas white rooks are already connected. And so white has this open file here, and maybe at the moment the rook is defending this open file and the queen is also here, but maybe we can claim this open file. So at the same time, this knight is attacking those two pieces. This knight is protected, this bishop is not. So how can we combine all this? Topalov with white here played queen to d2, protecting at the same time the bishop, and also covering the e1 square. And now white has the plan to take the rook, queen takes, rook comes here, and queen has to move, and white would claim this open file with the rook and the queen. This bishop is blocking this rook, so this rook cannot control and swing in and block white's access to this file. So as black tries to exchange the pieces, white tries to generate this additional resource. Okay, so black here played g5, kicking this knight away, and continuing to looking to close the position and exchange pieces. And now white takes the rook, carries on with his plan, queen takes, rook to e1, all these moves are forced, rook takes e8 was a check, and now we are taking the queen has to move. And now white says, okay, I can't stop exchanging those pieces, G5 is attacking the knight again and also blocking the protection of the bishop, so let's exchange those pieces, let's take them off the board, and now we claim this open file. So what white has done is, white has basically said, look black, you want to exchange pieces, I cannot stop you, but as we exchange those pieces, I'm going to claim another advantage, which is this open file that white now controls. How would you evaluate this position? White has this nice bishop here which controls squares around the king and has claimed this diagonal. White has a double pawn here which might not be so much of a weakness. Black potentially has a weakness here on f6 and the rook is still not developed. So black to play. Black played king to f7, preparing to take control of the e8 square so that black can reclaim this file and exchange pieces, which is good for black, and also maybe centralizing the king for an endgame that ensues after this and protecting the f6 weakness at the same time. Okay, white is kicking the bishop away, taking away squares from the bishop. These pawns here block the bishop, and now these squares here are denied to the bishop as well. So if ever there's an exchange, which bishop is better? Not so easy to tell. At the moment this bishop is caged in here and the king can attack the bishop. This was, by the way, also a plan of moving the king to f7. Okay, so white has this problem bishop here, but at the same time has this file and maybe the weakness here a little bit, and this bishop at the moment controls squares around the king. So question number 5, how can white make the best of the use of the resources available to him in this position? Find a good move for white. Okay, white has some resources and has to attack, and the best way to do this, almost a textbook answer, is to open the position. And the move that Vesely and Topalov played here is f4, trying to force black hands and open the position. Very good plan. Okay, king continues to attack the bishop, f takes g, protecting the bishop, f takes g, and white has reached his goal to open the position. Moves in the queen, and question number 6, why can black not take here? What is the winning move for white? A quick tactics question. Okay, white in this position, black cannot take the bishop because white has queen to d6. And now there's a combination of forcing moves that leave white with a winning advantage and a material advantage as well. So the king, after queen to e5, the king cannot take the bishop on h6, but the king also has to move out of the threat here. And so black plays queen to f6. And let's have a look at this position here. Training question number 7. Again, black wants to exchange pieces and then maybe even end up with a better position. So white has to now find a winning plan. And question number 7, how can white rearrange his pieces for maximum attack in making use of the dynamic advantage of better piece play that he has at the moment? Okay, the correct plan is queen to h2, protecting the bishop and at the same time preparing to bring in the rook. And all the play of white is against the weak pawn on g5. And what can black do against this plan? Basically, black wants to deny the access of the rook to this pawn by moving his bishop in between, but this square is at the moment controlled by this pawn on g4, so the best really that black can do is to take this pawn and after rook e5 move the bishop in. But now it can be kicked again with g4. And in this position here, white has reached all his goals, and black could not do anything against this attack. So here, after this check, black either moves away and loses a piece in the game, or maybe the best practical chances, even though the position is absolutely lost, is to sacrifice the queen, which is what Hikaru Nakamura played in the game. And in this position here, white has a material advantage and is winning. And the last question of this video, question number 8, in an endgame like this, how can white most easily convert his advantage in a win? What is the plan for this endgame that's the safest and the easiest for white? Okay, also very instructive. The easiest plan for white is with these 4 pawns here on both sides and the queen is twofold. First, the idea is to generate a passed pawn, and once white has a passed pawn, he has this additional resource, which is most easy for him to win. And while doing this, this is the second element, white can use his queen to attack loose pieces, especially at the moment where those pieces are not so well coordinated. There's always the risk of double attacks of the queen on the king in the position that black has to watch out for. So white can double attack loose pieces and also use the queen to perform several functions. At the same time perform the function of helping create a passed pawn and providing a defensive function for any attack that black might plan on white. So we're going to see very instructively how Topalov employs all these principles in the next move. Queen to b7 serves the multi-purpose of creating a passed pawn by taking out one of black's pawn, and at the same time also attacking a loose piece. So we see 2 principles at work here. Black moves the rook away, tries to coordinate with the bishop and also protecting this other weakness here. And white takes the pawn, has already reached the first goal. b5, again, black tries to coordinate his pieces. This is the only pawn that is weak now, and this is protected by the rook, and the rook is protected by the bishop, so black tries his best to coordinate his pieces and somehow build a castle to a fortress to somehow draw this game. But here white has the simple plan of creating a passed pawn, b3 with the plan of a4, creating a passed pawn, and black cannot really do anything against it. Moves the king in, we take the opposition here, maneuvering the pieces a little bit, but white has this plan, and once you see that white just has to create a passed pawn, the moves come to you very easily. The king moves in, tries to take some squares away, and in this position here, very instructive, we see black is now trying to create some counterplay with giving a check here on the king. The king would then have to retreat on the last rank, and white might in some variations get some attack and some mating nets. But here we see again the last principle. Queen to c7 stays around here to help support the advance of the pawn, and at the same time the queen also performs a defensive function, taking away this check from the rook. And this was the last principle that we have touched upon in this endgame, using the queen to support the goal of pushing the passed pawn and at the same time a defensive function. So the game still continued king to d3, but in this position here Hikaru resigned. There's really nothing that black can do here. And let's again have a look at this position here. Double attacks, creating a passed pawn, using the queen for double purpose of defensive and pushing the passed pawn. If you know these motives, the endgame is very easy to convert. Okay, thanks a lot for watching.